The story begins in a large hangar that seemed like an unshakable fortress for the four mysterious men. Inside, among the flickering light of lanterns, they were discussing their roles. The actors, all the while, felt the energy and passion they had at the beginning of their careers. But suddenly, a young couple watching them noticed something strange. They scream, trying to stop the tragedy, but our protagonist does not have time to react. In an instant, he suddenly loses his life, leaving everyone in shock and ignorance. The protagonist's death leaves him with many questions. He doesn't even know the cause of his death. Was it an accident, or maybe something more that was meant for him? His last thoughts, in his last moments, remain with him, another segment of his unfinished life. However, while his soul is floating in a non-existent space, the protagonist is fully experiencing his acting dreams. He imagines himself on the big screen, playing the roles he has always wanted to play. A large multi-story building. A young couple lives there, and 7 months ago they gave birth to a cute baby, whom they named Lee So-chun. The parents are standing next to their little son and his father is looking at him with happy eyes. "Oh, ah!" the little baby cried out. The little boy was only 7 months old. He was lying in his comfortable crib. The hearts of the young parents, Lee Min-young and Seo Eun-hai, were filled with joy when they heard the baby's cry. "Our baby, he's very cute," Lee Min-jun said, looking at his 7-month-old son. Seo Eun-hai supported her husband, nodding in agreement. The birth of their child was a real gift from heaven. Lee Seo-young regained his senses. Looking around the incredibly large room, he was deep in thought. He had been reborn many times before, but he had never lost his memories from his past lives. And at some point, there were so many memories that a library of life appeared, where all the memories were stored in books. And then, he saw a big door. The door in front of him was huge. Behind it was the library, where the memory of all the lives he had lived was kept. The child's tiny hand tried to push the door, but it did not yield. Yes. This was worth waiting for. It happened that he was reborn into a creature with an extremely low level of intelligence. But even so, guided by his instincts, the boy always made his way into the library. After several such deaths, he decided to lock the entrance to the library so that only an intelligent being could open it. And he thought that he should look for something that he could do. And he found a blue door that he was able to open. Well, I have enough intelligence. But the strength. Lee Seo-young waved his little hand, and the door suddenly began to rotate, shrinking in size with each revolution. There was more than one entrance to the library. Throughout its existence, he had placed many doors leading to different parts of the library. They were strikingly different in size. If he was in a second body, he would have found something suitable. And he thought that small children grow very, very slowly. This depressed him a little bit. But at some point he saw an even smaller door. He opened it and saw a book there. With his small hands he took it out and started reading, and what he read surprised him. He had always only played the role of nameless extras. Memories came flooding back to him. He saw himself sitting in a movie studio. The memories reminded him that he still wanted to be an actor in his next life, and, most importantly, a main character, not just a background. The boy sat and looked at the book. And at some point he remembered his first life. Was there any one dream that he had tried his best to achieve? This question bothered him a lot. But he realized that there was not. Although there was a dream from his first life that he decided to fulfill in this present life. And he decided to become not just an actor, but a superstar. He started thinking, what exactly does he need to do this? And he started practicing the elven breath, which is a harmonization of the body that makes it the best it can be. His mother came up to him and took him in her arms. She was sincerely surprised that her little son was growing so fast. And he remembered one more thing, that once he was slime and could only enter doors that only slime could enter. He was just a simple little slime, But one day when he was looking for food next to a dragon to feed himself, he was trapped by the dragon and died, but 3 days later he was reborn. Most of the books were a couple of pages long, more like brochures with children's fairy tales. There were very few books with records. Most of them had various images and sketches. Shijun began to look at the titles of the books on the shelves. Slugs 1, Slugs 1 to 2. Fairy 1, Fairy 1 to 2, Fairy 2. And 1. Plant 1. The bookcase was divided into tiers. Each tier had its own creature. Reaching out, the boy took the book, Slug 1, put it on the floor and sat down. When he opened it, he saw a picture of a large green slug stretching its slimy tentacles toward a tree in an attempt to pull something off it. Slugs were very good at changing their shape. At first they looked like a drop, but every day, adapting to their surroundings, they took on a new look. It seemed that there was no other feature of the slug other than this one. Even a baby could easily smear such a stupid and insignificant creature. Zijun reached out and took out the next book. There were different pictures of the same fairy on the pages. In the last one, she was flying around a huge-looking flower. He remembered being a good flower fairy. Fairy 1 told of a mischievous flower fairy who spent her whole life in flowers. She was different from other fairies in her appearance. Apart from this trick, there was nothing special about her. She lived a perfectly happy and carefree life. He thought that it would be nice if he had such beauty as the fairy. But it's a pity that fairies die with their flower. It's beautiful, of course, but... After thinking about this, Seojun put the book aside and began to look at the bookshelf again. Shijun ran his eyes over all the books he could reach and finally found something interesting. He took the slime digestion ability found in Slug 3 and the fairy wand from Fairy 15. These abilities could come in handy. He was happy to have found it. There was a bright flash. A blue bead-shaped pattern appeared on Shijun's plump baby tummy, visible only to him, which meant that he now had the slug skill. The boy happily exclaimed, "I did it!" The fairy's ability was embodied in a leaf with a small stem. He was surprised that the engraving was on the stem, not on his finger. Shijun brought the stem to his right hand and put it to his index finger. He thought it would be a little weird to shake his hands every time. He wanted to use this ability. It would be better to just make one elegant movement with his index finger. He opened his palm and again there was a strong flash that shone brightly. And for some reason, childish instincts came to life. He was shocked and displeased. It was a Saturday. Even though most people had the day off, Seojun's father, who was one of the lucky ones, who worked whenever he could, had left in the afternoon. Therefore, to make a good day off for herself, Seo Yun-hai decided to invite her friends over. A real meeting of new mothers was taking place in their apartment. And one of the women said, "Seo-jun loves to eat." She also added that her daughter, Ji-yoon, hadn't eaten anything today, but the hospital told her that this was normal and that her diet would improve over time. Ji-yoon was only 7 months old. She was born in March and was also fed baby food and powdered milk, but she kept kicking, making it impossible to feed her in peace. The girl shook her head, hit the bottle with her hands, and even spit out the baby food. The kids were playing with their toys, not paying attention to Shijun. He played calmly with his doll. His childish instincts took over, despite his rational thinking. Suddenly, Shijun burst into tears, making it clear that it was time to feed him again. "Yum yum," he mumbled. "What's wrong? Are you hungry again?" Seo Eun-hai said, looking at her watch in surprise. The time spent with her friends flew by. Hearing Sejun crying, the children began to cry with him. The living room was filled with the cries of babies. The mothers hurriedly reached into their bags for milk powder to feed their young children. Hearing the wailing that surrounded him, Shijun immediately stopped talking and thought that maybe he had started crying for nothing. But after sitting for a moment longer, he realized that the decision was right and that his crying would definitely get him some food. All the children who were really hungry sat down and ate, while those who were just crying for company did not want to eat. Their mothers begged them to eat, but they did not succeed. The room became very noisy, and Shijun's mother decided to leave them to a quiet place. He was in his mom's arms and watched what was happening. The rest of the family could not get the children to drink milk. Hoping to stop it all, Shijun, still sucking on the bottle, raised his right hand up and opened his palm. "Radiance!" he said. This was the first time he had ever used the fairy radiance. The fairy glow should get their attention if it works. When using this ability, the fairy's wings flashed. But since Shijun didn't have any, the boy's hair and skin shone. The crying babies looked at the strangely shiny boy in amazement. The mothers, in turn, did not notice. Only the innocent children were affected by the fairies. Magic. When the babies suddenly stopped crying while staring at a single point, the women looked at each other in surprise. They were all sitting on the floor. Seo Eun-hai wrapped one arm around Sejun and held his bottle with the other. He was sucking on it calmly. His hand and hair were shining, but his mother didn't notice, just like the other mothers. The sound of Seo-jun sucking on the bottle so impressed one of the baby's immature brains that he began to repeat it, and the other children picked it up, following Seo-jun's actions. "Finally!" all the mothers said. They were surprised that all the children began to repeat after little Shijun, and they began to praise him for being so obedient. "Do you know what this is like?" asked Mina's mother, combing her golden hair. "It's mukbang. Only with kids." Mukbang is a form of video blogging where people eat in large quantities, filming it all on camera and broadcasting it live. Everyone laughed at the words of Mina's mother, who was fond of blogging and often posted on social media what was happening in her life. After putting the kids back in their seats, the women continued to talk lightheartedly about life. One of the mothers asked if Sunghai could send her a video of Seo Young eating. Everyone was shocked by her question. "I was joking." Mina's mother was the most surprised. "Yes, I know. It's just that." Ji-yoon's mother blurted out with tears in her eyes. "Our Ji-yoon doesn't want to eat at all. She is so thin, not like your children. No matter how hard we try, she keeps throwing away her bottle. The doctor said she should eat more often to be healthy." Ji-yoon's mother cried. "Come on. Ji-jun is just taller than many of his peers. That's why he eats the most." Her little girl sat there crying. She was very small for her age. When Seo-jun saw all this, he didn't think twice about it. He raised his right hand up again, opened his hand, and shone again. "I'll distract her attention. Maybe that will make her stop crying," the boy thought. Shijun's hair and skin shone. The children's eyes darted around again. They began to run toward him. There was something truly magical in front of them. Shijun's shiny hair and fingers were in their mouths. "Mom! Save me!" said Shijun himself. Eun-hai did not see this. She was too busy comforting Ji-yoon's mother. Soon, Ji-jun's entire body was covered with the saliva of the children. He could have screamed out loud, but his steadfast character did not allow him to. Si-jun's father came home from work. His wife had prepared a meal and they sat at the table in the kitchen, and she told him what had happened today. She told him that the children repeated everything after their son. Lee Min was very surprised to hear this. And Xian told him that all the moms who were there thought that Shi-jun could become a mukbang star. But the father got excited and offered to calm his son down. But the mother calmed him down and said that he was a very good boy. He was a very nice child today. He was knocked down by the children, and he did not fight with anyone and behaved calmly, said Xian. Shi-jun started laughing out loud, and his parents were surprised by his laughter. But the little boy knew why he was laughing. He was happy because he had taken revenge on the dragon who had once killed him. After placing a bowl of rice on the table, Sunghai sat down next to the man and took her son in her arms. She spoke to her husband. I promised the other mothers to film him drinking milk powder and eating mashed potatoes. The husband agreed and they began to video their sweet son eating deliciously. And Shijun sat there and thought about whether he should use the power of the fairy now. But it would be strange if he shook his hand in front of his parents. And what do you think? The little boy decided to try it and launched the fairy effect. The parents were surprised why he raised his hands and thought that the boy really likes it when his parents feed him. Xian decided to immediately send the video to her mom, who asked her to do so. Ji-yoon's mom, Lee Seo-eun, was very pleased and happy to receive the videos. A few days passed and all the mothers came to visit Xian. Ji-yoon's mother started a conversation. The doctor said that we don't have to worry anymore if Ji-yoon doesn't refuse to eat. He praised us. Seun-hai smiled when she heard Ji-yoon's mother's words. It's been 2 weeks since she sent the video of Ji-joon eating. She even ate without Ji-joon now. Everything is back to normal. The twins' mother, who was sitting next to me, began to confirm Ji-yoon's mother's words. Our twins also eat well without the video. They even take it from each other sometimes. All the children were happy and smiling. Ji-joon was very surprised to hear all this. Did the video really work? It was his first experience of using his powers in this way. If the fairy glow works even on a recording, then it will be incredibly easy for me to become a superstar. Ji-joon smiled and hugged the new toy that Kim Hee-sun had given him a few days ago. It was a doll of King Lich, the evil dark magician. The mothers were sitting happy and discussing everything that had happened to them in the last few days, and during the conversation, Mina's mom asked, Listen, do you want to upload the video of Shijun to NeoTube? On NeoTube? Asked Xian. Her mom told Xian that she sometimes shoots videos of Mina and posts them on NeoTube. It is a vlog about Mina. The mothers were immediately curious. But in the last video she made, people saw that Mina started eating better, and people who watched the video were surprised that Mina's mom had done this, that her daughter started eating well, and they bombarded her with comments. But she didn't tell them about their secret, she just advised them on recipes she liked. Seun-hai and the others nodded in understanding. But Mina's mom added something no one expected. Woon-hai, if you don't mind, could you upload some videos of Shijun? It'll help other moms a lot. I don't know. Sung-hai was lost in thought. I don't know how it would affect the baby. Sung-hai continued to think about her suggestion. Her son was only 7 months old, and if he could speak, she would ask him, but the opinion of his audience would play a very significant role in his development and upbringing. At that moment, Shijun was sitting on the floor drawing magic circles. I don't think it's a good idea to show everyone a child at this age. I need to talk to my husband. I'm not insisting. Just think about it. No, then no, Mina's mom said. Seun-hai looked at her son. Shijun was enthusiastically playing King Lich. Lee Min, Shijun's father, was at work at the time. In his spare time, he sat and watched a video of his little son eating and was surprised at how fast he was growing. A co-worker named Kim Hee-sung, who is Shijun's uncle, walked by and saw Lee Min watching this video and asked him if this was the orc he had given to the little boy. Lee Min replied that it was indeed the orc and that the boy liked it very much. But the boy's mother was not happy to see the little boy playing with a scary orc. But Kim Hee said that Sejun had a unique way of looking at things. They watched the video together, and Kim Hee was surprised to learn why the boy raised his hands when he ate. He had never seen children raise their hands when eating. He also asked if maybe Shijun liked being filmed. Lee Min was surprised by Kim Hee's opinion. Lee Min thought about it for a long time, and an interesting idea flashed through his mind. What if Sejun was born to be an actor? However, the next time Kim Hee-sung took pity on the boy's parents and gave him the same werewolf, as he said, but in the form of a human. He was a truly wonderful uncle. Seo-yoon really liked the new game. I am Edmund, King of the Lich, Lord of all the dead. said the crowned skeleton played by Lee Min-jun. Wee! Seo-jun cheered and punched his father's hand, who looked like the boy he had killed in his past life. On a piece of newspaper lying at Lee Min-jun's feet was a script written by Kim Hee-sung. Seeing that his father began to put the newspaper aside and spoil all the fun, the upset Seo-jun reached forward and grabbed the man's hand. Let's go with the script. Seo-jun tried his best to tell his father, his eyes shining. My servants, listen to my will. Lee Min-jun continued with a heavy sigh. I don't believe it, Min-jun. More emotion, smiled Shi-eun-hai, who was watching the performance from the sofa. It seems that our son likes this kind of acting and these dialogues, said Lee Min. I think Hee-sung is better at playing King Leech. Seo-jun liked him better, Seo-eun-hai added slyly. Ugh, Seo-jun muttered. Do you want me to stop talking to Mom and play with you? Lee Min-jun asked his son. Seo-jun smiled and waved the werewolf in his hands. The wolf's blue fur glistened in the light. It was a life and death battle. King Lich versus the werewolf. I've lost. No, cried King Lich. The werewolf Shi-jun had won. Shi-eun-hai hugged the little boy, laughing at her son's joy, and began to soothe him, stroking his tummy. He he he. Shi-jun laughed. You're such a good boy, Si-jun. Si-jun's arms and legs were shaking happily, beating a rhythm around Zo-eun-hai's waist. When he heard his mom and dad's compliments, his heart was filled with warmth. I'm just wonderful. Childlike instincts were taking over Seo-jun's mind, which had lived through many hundreds of lives. I thought about uploading a video of Seo-jun eating to the internet, but what if, when he grows up, he doesn't like us showing off his childhood videos? Si-young-hae still had doubts. Lee Min-jun laughed at his wife's words. She was worrying too much about something so trivial. He was just a child. By the time Shi-jun grows up, he will have forgotten about it. Maybe, but still. Lee Min-jun remembered what Kim Hee-sung had said. When you think about it, he does have acting talent. He likes being on camera. He will be happy to do so. Does he like being on camera? Asked Si-yeon. Remember, he was waving his arms so happily when we filmed him for your friends. Shi-jun listened to this carefully and thought, Oh, Dad, you don't know anything. It was magic. I was raising my hands to summon the fairy's magic. But the thought was correct. Although he was still a baby, Shi-jun already wanted to bask in the glory and have many fans. To become a real superstar, you need to start gathering fans from the very diapers, thought little Shi-jun. Li Ming spoke enthusiastically to Xian and added, You saw when I played badly, our son was indignant. But you said that we need to calm our son down and not let him do that. Xian added. Li Ming began to retract his words and added that their son was indeed extraordinary. He also wondered how Shi-jun could understand that Li Ming was not very enthusiastic about playing with the boy, who was still a small child. The boy was sitting in his mother's arms, and the following words flashed through his mind. I understand everything. Our son is growing up to be a genius. We must let him become an actor. The couple's eyes turned to their son. Shi-jun continued to bite his fist with his toothless mouth, as if he didn't understand. Well, shall we show everyone what we've filmed? Do you mind? His wife asked Lee Min-jun. Li Ming agreed to the idea and added, If it will be useful to other people, then why not? Xian looked at him enthusiastically and said that she would upload the video right away, but they needed to come up with a name in Korean and English. So they came up with a simple and original name for their channel, Chun, and uploaded 2 videos. Si-yoon immediately sent the link to Mina's mom, and she said she would help with the development of the channel. A few hours passed and their videos started gaining views very quickly. Li Ming sat there and didn't know what to do next, for Shi-jun was lying on his little crib looking at the toys hanging above him. He kneaded his little hands with his little hands. He was lying on his back, breathing deeply and thinking. He was thinking that after all his rebirths he had lost almost all his memories and skills, but this time he had 2 skills left. He hadn't forgotten the basic elf breathing technique and the basic genie breathing technique. They had a similar effect, which in turn saturated him with dark energy. Shijun's breathing gradually became calmer and calmer. His body was filled with magical energy, and he wanted to sleep some more. He put the pacifier in his mouth and fell asleep. The main advantage of such breathing, gymnastics, was that they helped to master other abilities. And if he has them since childhood, he will use them. He was sleeping sweetly, but woke up when his father Li Min came to him. "Oh, you're awake?" Li Min Jun's face appeared above the crib. Shi Jun saw his father and smiled. And he thought that the most convenient thing about these 2 techniques is their stability. And if you need to stop it, you can do it quickly and without consequences. He also thought that it helped him when he was in the body of a weak monster and couldn't rest for a minute. "Is Shi Jun awake?" asked Seo Eun-hai, who was sitting in the phone. "Yes." "How did you get so many notifications on your phone?" Lee Min-jun came into the living room holding his son in his arms and asked his wife in surprise. "Even Shi-jun says it's too noisy." Xian was sitting at the table, looking at her phone and then at her laptop. The notifications kept bothering her. "Oh, don't start. I'll turn off the sound and the notifications will stop bothering you." She hastily switched the phone to silent mode. Lee Min-jun sat down next to his wife and put Shi-jun on his lap. This seems to be written to you by people who have watched the video of Shi-jun. At that moment, Shi-jun was sitting there and was very hungry. He thought about whether to cry or not. "No, it's my friend's writing," Seo-yeon explained. "Min-ju is asking me to go to the channel because something incredible is happening there." Shi-jun, who had stuck his head away from his father's stomach, also glanced at his video statistics on NeoTube out of the corner of his eye. NeoTube is a website where people from all over the world upload their videos, and that even anyone can become mega popular on this site. After reading all the messages, Xian went to NeoTube. "Wow! What is this? I don't understand it either." Shi-jun was very surprised to see the statistics. Shi Eun-hai and Lee Min-young were very surprised by the sudden increase in views and comments. Their video had received more than 1 million views. All 3 of them stared at the monitor for a long time at the growing statistics. Suddenly the phone rang. It was Mina's mom. Xian immediately picked up the phone. "Hi. What's going on? What happened? Did you see that? Wasn't it amazing? Yeah, we still can't believe it. Is this real? You guys are superstars now. Oh no. Shi-jun is a star now." Min-ji's loud voice came from the phone. At that moment, the little boy sat there and felt his stomach growling. His desire to eat did not disappear. "Hurry up and apply for monetization." "Monetization?" Xian replied. Li Min snatched the phone out of his hands and started talking. "Hello, Mina's mom. It's Li Min, Shi-jun's dad. Is it time for us to start monetization? I heard that for non-popular people, there might be problems with it." "Oh, hi. It's okay, they only care about watch time and subscribers. You have already fulfilled all their conditions to connect the channel to monetization." Their son's channel had not only a lot of views, but also a lot of subscribers. There were 210,000 subscribers and the number is always growing. Shi-jun wasn't surprised by this, and he was worried about something else at that moment. He was very hungry, and what do you think? He cried so hard that he scared his parents. The parents immediately regained consciousness. Li Min picked up Shi-jun again and carried him to the kitchen. "What's wrong, son? Are you hungry? I'll feed you now," Li Min said. "I'll call you later," Sunjian said to Min's mom. Li Min was diluting the milk powder with warm water. Seeing this, Shi-jun immediately stopped crying. After making sure that the mixture was at the right temperature, he began to feed his son. Shijun was finally able to calm his stomach and control his gurgling. Shijun ate quietly and knew that his dad was the best at making such delicious food. Li Ming returned to the living room with his son, holding the bottle of formula. He told him that she had already done everything and that the ads would start appearing as soon as the channel was approved for monetization. And what do they say? There are not only messages in Korean. Mostly they say that their children used to not eat, but now, after watching our video, they started eating well. Now they feed him 3 times a day, and he hasn't refused once. Before, we had to ask for half an hour. Xianhe told her husband. It seems that the children immediately start eating after watching Doesn't's video. When Lee Min-jun leaned over to look at the screen, the bottle he was holding in his hand lost its angle, and Shijun was upset because he was uncomfortable. He couldn't make any sound because the bottle nipple was still in his mouth. So he decided to hit his father on the arm. "Oh, I'm sorry." Lee Min fixed the bottle and continued to look at the laptop screen. Lee Min looked at his phone and saw that he was also receiving a lot of messages. One of the messages was from Kim Hee-sung, who asked him if this was the video he had shown him at work. Si-yeon was surprised to tell him that their son was already being written about on the internet. And she was surprised that it had spread so quickly. Xianhe opened the link to the website that one of the mothers had sent her. She saw a short recommendation article about Shijun. She and her husband read it carefully and looked at each other and didn't know what to say. There was a lot of discussion about this video on the site. People wrote a lot of interesting things, and the parents were just shocked that this video, namely their little son, helped the parents feed their children. But they noticed that this technique is not suitable for everyone, and it is suitable for children under the age of 20 months. Many people in the comments were upset. Shijun heard the parents talking and thought to himself that it seems to him that the reason why it doesn't work on older children is that the fairy wand is at a very low level. And for it to work on older children, the boy needs more mana. He also mentioned that there are still many skills in the library of life that are much more advanced than the fairy wand. But his maximum is the blue little door, so most of the skills are not available to him now, and it will be difficult to use them in the little boy's body, because he can't even hold a bottle by himself. Lee Min saw the bottle falling on the ground and quickly catches it. And he asks his son what he can tell his dad if he ate. Little Shijun shouts to him, and Lee Min nods his head and tells him to always shout like that when he is full. He is only 8 months old. He doesn't understand you yet, Xian said. Sejun understands everything because he's a genius. All parents say that about their children. Yes, he really is a genius. Kang Sora, Elephant's marketing manager, writes to her director, Jong Hyun-chi, who is the head of the planning department at the same firm. Hyun-chi, we have a problem. Do you remember the Lala channel that helped sell our mixes better? She posted a new video on NeoTube in which she said that children started eating better not because of our formula, but because of baby mokpan. Jong Hyun-chi, the brand manager of Elephant Baby Food, sat in front of her computer and sighed heavily. Recently, their formula series had been recommended on NeoTube, and sales had skyrocketed. All the products they had in the stores were sold out very quickly. They couldn't keep up with the orders, so they increased production. Now they have a lot of inventory and everything is not for sale. I'm probably going to get fired now. Jong Hyun-chi continued to think. Nowadays, it has become very popular to use NeoTube stars to advertise various products. So, they decided to invite Shijun's mother and son to participate in the promotion of their product. Hyun-chi sat in front of her laptop monitor and wondered how it was possible that this little boy, Shijun, had made such a big splash in 2 10-minute videos. She was genuinely surprised. And what struck her the most was that the main chat room showed proof of other moms feeding their children while they watched Shijun's videos. Hyunchi made a drastic decision and wrote to Conseil that they should advertise with Sejun's parents, and that it would increase their sales. 5. Apartment. In the box that was given to Shijun by his uncle is a beautiful cute teddy bear. The boy's father asks his uncle if it is a really good toy. He replies that it is very good and that when he watched the video with Shijun, he saw that there was a toy of a two-headed troll behind the chair. His father accidentally dropped the teddy bear. His uncle added that he had seen the troll in the baby food video. The father handed Sejun to the uncle and started watching the video himself, because he was shocked by what he heard. He held the boy in his arms and whispered quietly to him that he should not be disappointed with the gift, because there was an interesting surprise in it. The uncle opened the teddy bear and took out a toy called the doppelganger. Shijun was amazed to see that the teddy bear had a secret pocket, and he was even more amazed to see the toy. His uncle whispered to him again that this would be their secret, and that little Shijun should not tell anyone about it. He held the teddy bear and was very happy. As his father watched the video, he angrily asked his uncle where he saw the troll in the video, because his father did not see anything in the video. After a while, the mothers of the other children whom Xian had invited to their apartment gathered in their apartment. They discussed that they needed to weed out those mothers who had a bad reputation among the other mothers, because Shijun needed to maintain his image. Seung remembered that she hadn't told the mothers about the advertisement they had been offered. She started to tell them, and the mothers were shocked and supported her because it would be a star time for her little boy and it would be a good time to earn money for the future. Xian added that her son likes elephant's formula. They have tried many different formulas, but this is the one her son likes the most. Mina likes elephant's milk powder so much. Jiyun also eats only this milk. He refuses anything else. The twins also eat only elephant. They like it very much. And their tummies never hurt. Woonhai listened to them carefully and finally said, "I don't know. I have to think about whether to agree to this commercial. Thanks to Shijun, they will sell out." The mother added, "They have a good reputation. What's there to be afraid of?" Mina's mother couldn't understand. "That's right. This will only play into Shijun's hands. You won't spoil the boy's image." The twins' mother supported her. "You've convinced me. I'll contact the advertisers, but I'll talk to Li Min first," said Xian. That evening, Xian talked to her husband, and with Li Min-jun's approval, Xian Hai decided on Shijun's first commercial. Xian looked at her watch. It was very late, and Li Ming, who usually returned by 7, was late. "Dad's running late." Today he was supposed to meet with a friend of his who was a lawyer to discuss the details of the contract with Elephant. Sejun didn't care much. It was getting late. It was time to go to bed. He hugged his teddy bear and drifted off to sleep. Suddenly the doorbell rang. Walking to the threshold with her son in her arms, Xian opened the door. "Daddy's home!" Li Minjun greeted the family, beaming with happiness. The sudden arrival of his father interrupted Shijun's sleep. Unable to go back to sleep, he started playing on the couch with his teddy bear. Li Ming took out a copy of the contract and showed it to his wife and wanted to read it to his son, but Xian took her son away and asked her husband to wash first because he smelled of alcohol. The incomprehensible words were marked with a red pen with instructions signed at the bottom. The filming will last about 30 minutes, and if necessary, they will call for more shots. But we will take a break before the next shooting so that our boy can rest. Are they sure they'll have time to shoot everything in 30 minutes? Seo Eun-hai sighed heavily. They said it will be in NeoTube video format, so it's fine. Besides, they also want to do some editing, subtitling, splicing, voiceover, and everything else. And first they will show the video on various websites, and then it will be released on television in 3 months. CNH smiled. Their previous videos were very spontaneous. There was no editing involved. That's great. What did the lawyer say? He said everything was fine. There's nothing in the fine print anywhere. So everything is fine. So, should we sign it? Asked Xian. Lee Minjun nodded confidently. Shi Jun looked at his parents and started nodding as well. They were very happy. Shi Jun agreed too. Then it's definitely decided. Li Ming took out the original contract. Okay. Xiunhai went to the kitchen and brought back a small bowl. After dripping some red paint into it, she sat Shi Jun on her lap and dipped his right thumb into the bowl. It's an advertisement for S. Jun, so he will sign the contract himself, said the boy's happy mother. Li Ming immediately took out his camera and took a couple of photos. Switching the camera to video mode, he began to film his son sealing his finger, which was dirty with paint, into the contract. Now, under Xiao Eunhai and Li Mingying's signatures, there was a red child's stamp. Shi Jun looked at his right hand. Even though he was in his right mind, there was still paint on his thumb. Looking in front of him, Shi Jun saw a small blue door that he could not squeeze through. Waving his hand to the side, he began to flip the next door. Soon a door of the right size appeared in front of him. Shi Jun slowly pushed it open and crawled inside, thinking about which skill he should choose. Wow! I've been digging around here for so long and haven't found anything useful yet. Well, now is not the time to sit around. We need to find a skill that will make adults buy things. Si Jun took out a new book and started reading it. He was happy because he had found something interesting. How did I not see that before? He wondered. Good afternoon. The girl who approached them greeted the family. My name is Choi Hyunchi. I am the head of the planning department at Elephant. Let me show you around the studio, the woman suggested. The set was open. The pavilions consisted of 3 walls. The prepared room looked very similar to their living room. Employees were bringing in furniture and setting up the lighting. After looking around the pavilions, Xian Hei was very surprised. Everything is just like at home. Yes, we tried to recreate everything like in your videos. Shi Jun, who was sitting in his mother's arms, kept turning his head. Everything looked so much like his home. This way, please. This is the waiting room. You can use it to relax. Choi Hyunchi took them to a cozy room. The room was filled with children's toys and dolls. In the middle of the room was a small crib where they could put Shi Jun. Next to the crib was a coffee machine and a refrigerator with several cartons of elephant milk powder with a yellow elephant, which was so beloved by Shi Jun. There was also a set of diapers on the cot. Everything for their comfort. Wow, thank you, said Li Min. You can have a look around our set if you want. I hope you find something to keep you busy, Choi Hyunji said. Choi Hyunji left the family and walked away. I didn't think they would be so well prepared. Li Minjun started unpacking his bag. Look at all the nice toys they left for our son, admired Xiunhai. Li Minjun smiled proudly. He had brought only a teddy bear from home. The expensive dolls in the room did not fascinate Shi Jun. He likes the teddy bear that his uncle gave him better, said Li Min. As a result, Shi Jun was put on the cot to play with his bear. He sat there and thought, if only everything went according to plan. And at some point, he realized that his head was very heavy and put it on the bear. The boy fell asleep exhausted. But he was woken up by a voice saying that he had to get Si Jun ready for the shooting. 6 the children gathered around their grandfather, who was sitting by the central fountain in the village. Grandpa, tell us a story about the war. What? The old man smiled sweetly. A story about the war? He was a very wise, kind, and respectful man. The children gathered in front of the old man. He was famous for his ability to tell stories. It happened when I was younger than you. It was a long time ago. Grandpa began to tell a story. Once, when he was very young, he went to play in the forest near the village. There, under one tree, he found a small box. He liked it very much, and he brought it back to the village. The villagers were very surprised by the boy's discovery. The box was exquisite and mesmerizing in its beauty. Suddenly it opened. It was a monster. Mimic, the old man said in a frightening voice. But the villagers did not know if this story was true. People began to call him Mimic and considered him a part of their small village. He even sometimes took the form of a box, and I really wanted to open it. And one day I did. I opened the box and there was Mimic, who scared me and made me laugh at the same time. We played with him and shared our food. The old man laughed. But after a while, a warrior came to the village. The old man's voice trembled. His heart was still filled with fear. He was the last villager to witness the events with his own eyes. A noble knight who came to our village tried to kill Mimic. But even his magic sword could not cope with it. The old man said quietly. The monster almost killed him. Fortunately, we were able to save his life. I was very protective of Mimic and didn't want anyone to hurt him. What kind of monster was it? An orc? Or maybe a troll? A terrible and fierce werewolf, said the old man. The hero asked the villagers for help. He could not cope with the monster alone. But what could we do? We are just ordinary villagers. After recovering from his wounds, the hero began to explore the village and, when he came to visit the still young grandfather, he saw Mimic. Mimic, the hero shouted. The villagers came running to hear the scream. They couldn't understand why the traveling knight was so scared. For them, Mimic was just a living wooden box that helped them get rid of garbage and waste. This is a monster from the darkest depths. He pointed his sword at the box. How can you keep him at home? What are you talking about? He's very cute. The young old man picked up the box. Don't you dare touch it. It's dangerous, the hero shouted again. Mimic decided that he would deal with the knight himself. And after sunset, the knight lured out the demon who was hiding in the corner. The knight ruthlessly killed Mimic. All the villagers were shocked by this situation. Later, the knight and the villagers made a beautiful fountain in Mimic's honor to thank him. They were sad that they had lost him. I am sure that God gave him a new life. Much better than the one he had. Perhaps now he is charming people. The old man smiled. He who can charm a demon can charm anyone. At this time, just like 8 months ago, Mimic, who had been reborn as a human, was preparing his intoxicating spell. Well, Shijun, are you ready to eat? Xiunhai smiled at her son. But at that moment, Shijun was ready to charm everyone. Let's start recording the video, said the director. The set was instantly silent. The two men looked at the big screen, which showed images from all 5 cameras. Shijun began to absorb the milk. The set was immersed in the rhythmic sounds of sucking on a bottle. Are we filming a mukbang? One of the cameramen asked his colleague quietly. It looks like it. The boy is eating well. Children his age usually whine incessantly, especially when it comes to food. He doesn't seem to realize he's being filmed. Of course, at this age. Cameras are just incomprehensible toys to him. That's great. Let's move on to the next shot. The parents standing nearby were surprised that this time their son did not raise his hands while eating. But little Shijun smiled because he knew that he had now acquired a new skill. The number of simultaneous skills that can be used in a child's body is very limited, so the fairy glow he used to use was replaced by a much more effective ability, the small mimicry charm. This ability was of a very high level. Thanks to it, Shijun could cast a spell on anything he held in his hands and make it desirable to those who watched. All he had to do was determine who exactly was to fall under the spell. Abilities had their limitations. In this case, they were his height, which was magical. Shijun could use this ability only up to a certain point, until he grew beyond the limitations. And it didn't take much mana to use this ability. Well, let's move on to the next scene, the director said. Before filming, the parents were told that in the second shot they would record the boy holding a bottle of formula and smiling. But the parents were not sure that the boy would do everything right because he was still very young. But the director assured them that he didn't expect anything out of the ordinary from Sejun, and that it would be fine. Before the parents could look back, the baby couch was immediately taken out of the pavilion. They laid the boy on the bed and put a bottle of milk and a package of formula in front of him. "Do you like the elephant, Sejun?" Shi Yonghai hinted to her son, pointing to the package. Sejun remembered what the director wanted him to do. Smiling broadly, the boy hugged the package of formula. All that's left is to cast the spell and specify the desired target. The boy hugged the package with the elephant as tightly as he could. The magic began to work. "May all parents with children my age want it." Sejun laughed, satisfied that his plan had worked, because all the people standing nearby were stunned. Seeing the boy's sweet smile and hearing his charming laugh, the director ordered the cameraman to take a close-up shot of Sejun and asked the boy to smile. "How well he works for the camera. The boy has a real talent," the director said in his mind. The crew began to whisper and discuss the amazing boy among themselves. The shooting of this video lasted no more than 20 minutes. The parents, listening to the talks about Sejun's future, were deep in thought. "Your son is destined to be an actor. He is still very young, and he already understands how to work on camera." The director continued to admire the boy. "I'm not saying that he needs to appear on TV right now, but it would be nice if you think about this direction in the future." "We'll think about it." Shi Yonghai smiled at him. Little boy Sejun was sleeping sweetly after a hard day's work. "Of course, I'm still a beginner. I haven't been directing for long, but if you need any help with the filming, don't hesitate to contact me." Choi Dae-man handed them his business card. "Thank you all for your work. Sejun did a great job," said Choi Hyun-chi. "Please accept this mixture. It's our gift to you on behalf of the entire Elephant Company." "Thank you very much," Seun-hai told them. The shooting ended in a very friendly atmosphere. The team thought they were going to spend the whole day with a naughty child, but it was over surprisingly quickly. "Bye, Sejun." Choi Hyun-chi waved to the boy. "Thanks to you, we'll sell out the whole formula." "Well done." After saying goodbye to the film crew, the boy and his parents returned home. Chapter 7. Los Angeles. A young man named Eric is cooking for his little son. And he plays him a video of Sejun to make his son eat better, because his son sometimes watches this video 5 times a day to make him eat better. The son watches the video with happy eyes and starts eating. The short video is so ingrained in his memory that he has memorized all of Sejun's movements by the second. Maria, who had just returned from a business trip, was standing at the table next to her son. Suddenly, the expected voice of Sejun's father did not sound, but instead a commercial for the milk powder their son loved came on. Eric and Maria realized that eventually there would be commercials, because popular people with lots of views cannot do without them. A little boy named Sejun appeared on the screen and was eating elephant formula. The parents were shocked that the boy was invited to appear in this commercial. They saw Sejun eating the formula deliciously. He was very cute and charming. Their son looked at them because he wanted the formula too. The father quickly picked up his phone and went to the online store to order the formula, but it was no longer available. He was very disappointed because they had wanted to buy it for their little son. The little mimic worked very well. That's what Sejun wanted. A large apartment building. Sejun's family lived there. The boy was lying on his baby couch and sucking on a bottle of milk. Lee Min began to praise Sejun because he was very good in the video. Even the whole studio praised the boy. Seo Eun-hai added that he didn't even cry once during the filming and they were able to finish it quickly. At the same time, they were talking to their grandmother via video link. Sejun looked at her with happy eyes. The grandmother said hello to the little boy, and she started asking if they would show the ad on TV. But the parents said that the ad would be shown on NeoTube first, but the grandmother didn't know what NeoTube was and didn't know how to use it. Seo-eun was surprised and thought that the boy's Uncle Chan had already explained everything to her. But unfortunately, he hadn't shown her anything, and her grandmother was very disappointed. Chan didn't show her because he was busy with a new job he had gotten. Seo-eun was surprised that Chan had found a job and said that it was great, and asked what he did at work. Grandma said it was some kind of agency that works with celebrities. Seo-eun and Chan looked nothing alike. They were like a beauty and a beast. His grandmother added that it looks like his company is called Coco Entertainment. He is a director there. Seo-eun had never heard of such a company. Seo-eun-hai's face mirrored the concern that flashed across her mother's face. At the same time, Shi-jun was smiling very sweetly, so Seo-eun decided to switch the subject. When she finished talking to her mother, she wanted to curse, but remembering that children remember everything on the subconscious, she immediately closed her mouth. She put the boy in his crib and gave him a toy that his uncle had given him. It was a king with a sword. Shi-jun took the toy with a smile and was surprised because his mother never gives him this toy. What a jerk! Why can't you just call me so Mom doesn't have to worry? It seems that he found an idol group and doesn't come home anymore. Finding her brother's name in her contact list, Seo-eun-hai decided to call him. But he didn't pick up the phone. But at some point, he picked up the phone and said that the director of Coco Entertainment was on the line. Seo-eun laughed at this. But her brother didn't realize who was calling. Si-jun was surprised that his uncle didn't recognize his mom. Seo-eun was very angry because her brother didn't recognize her voice and didn't even save her number. Chan was surprised that he didn't recognize his sister, because it looked like she had changed her phone number. And Seo-eun had changed her number 3 years ago, but apparently forgot to tell her brother. Seo-eun changed the subject and asked him why he stopped coming home. He said that he had a lot of work to do, so he didn't come home. Seo-eun added that his mother was very worried about her son and asked him to find time to come and see his mother, and that he should remember to come visit them because it had been a long time since he had visited them. After hanging up the phone and seeing her son eating King Lich's head, Seo-eun-hai took the doll out of his mouth and asked her son why his uncle was so stupid. At least he finally found a job. Shi-jun smiled sweetly at his mother. As if she had picked up his positive energy, she smiled back. Since the day the video with Shi-jun was uploaded to NeoTube, they have been receiving emails all the time. In addition to Elephant, they received other advertising offers. Someone even invited Si-jun to an internet broadcast, but Seo-eun didn't read the details because she was surprised that they were getting so many advertisements. But they were most surprised by the letter from Coco Entertainment. They were offered to take part in the filming of an entertainment show. They were looking for children, and they found Si-jun's channel and were very interested in it. Shi-jun captured the attention of many children around the world with a few mock-pan videos. And at the end, they invited them to the shooting again. But at the end of the letter was the most amazing thing. There was Chan's phone number with his phone number. Lee Min looked at this letter and said that the sender of this letter had the same name as her brother. Seo-eun looked at the letter and became even more angry because her brother did not recognize his nephew at all. Seo-eun-hai's face resembled a boiling kettle. The son and father looked at each other awkwardly and continued reading the letter. Seo-eun-hai picked up the phone and dialed her brother again. He didn't recognize her again, so Seo-eun introduced herself as the boy's mother, Shi-jun, and started talking to him about the letter he had sent. At this point, Lee Min put his hand over Shi-jun's mouth, which made the boy flail his arms in different directions. Shi-jun was very worried about his uncle and knew that his mom was going to yell at him again. Chan didn't save Seo-eun's number because he asked her if she was really Shi-jun's mom. And Chan suggested that they meet to discuss all the details. But Seo-eun suggested that he come to her sister's house and they talk about it there. Chan was surprised to hear this and asked again which sister's house she was talking about. Seo-yeon angrily told him to come to her sister's house because he was stupid and did not recognize his nephew. Chan looked at his phone and realized with horror that it was his sister calling. Seo-yeon shouted at him again to save her number. Chan was surprised to find out that Shi-jun's channel was actually his little nephew's channel. His friends were sitting next to Chan, who heard the whole conversation and were surprised by what they heard. They found out that Chan's nephew had a channel with 200,000 subscribers, but they were nothing alike. After Chan talked to his sister, his friends asked if he was okay. Chan said that he needed to go to his sister and discuss everything that had happened. His friends wished him good luck and he left, hoping that he would be okay. Chapter 8. Chan arrived very quickly. He brought a gift for Shi-jun. His sister met him at the door with the angriest face he had ever seen and told him that he couldn't bribe her that way and asked him to show her his phone. She was wondering if he had saved her number, and you won't believe it, but he had saved her number. Seo-yeon made a gesture of goodwill and let him in. He walked in and saw Lee Min holding his son in his arms. Chan asked them how they were doing. He saw Shi-jun, who was happy to see his uncle. Shi-jun was happy because his uncle had survived, because he thought his mom would destroy him. They started talking and his uncle was surprised that the boy had become so popular since their last meeting. Seo-yeon was surprised that Chan didn't recognize the boy in the video, but Chan interrupted her and said that it never happens to anyone, little kids always look alike. Seo-yeon started to ask him that he always picked up the phone when she called and didn't stay late at work because his mom was very worried about him. But Chan began to explain why he was late for work. He has a large team and needs to work with everyone and control everything, because he is the director. His main task now is to make a debut for a new group of idols before they appear on a music show in a month. So he's very busy preparing and won't be able to come home any sooner. Seo-eun sat and listened to him. She asked if he could come home faster when the show was over. But Chan told her that the band might fail, and that would be okay. Seo-yeon was surprised to hear that, and asked if he was right. Chan apologized and said that he was trying to make sure they didn't fail. Seo-eun understood and added that he would be even busier if they became more successful. Jang agreed and they closed the topic. Seo-yeon asked her brother if he was hungry. He said no, but Seo-yeon suggested that he at least have some coffee. He agreed and Seo-eun went to make him coffee. The men who remained in the room breathed a sigh of relief when they realized that she was no longer angry. Chan brought Si-jun something delicious. The boy sat there and ate the goodies his uncle had brought. The candy was banana-flavored. Lee Min decided to talk to Chan and asked him about the entertainment TV show they were planning to make. Chan began to tell him that his band was not very popular and they had no fans at all. And they could only appear on a music show if they were replacing other musical artists. So, Chan wanted to make them popular with the help of Si-jun's popularity. But he didn't want to use him. And he thought about it, and then he realized that it would be using Shi-jun. Seo-eun was as close as she could get to snapping at him again. Her brother had never been known for his compliant nature. It was a big surprise to her that, after 3 years of searching, he finally managed to find a job for himself. He changed a lot during that month. He cleaned himself up, started taking care of his image, even shaved off his crooked beard. He finally started to look like a normal person. If the show doesn't work out, he might get fired, and then he'll be unemployed again, Seo-eun thought. For Seo-eun, it was obvious that his boy band's debut was doomed to failure on its own. So she wanted to help her brother. But she was afraid that it would not be a short commercial they had already filmed, but a whole big show. Lee Min agreed to star in his son's TV show. And at that moment, little Shi-jun also raised his hands up and seemed to agree to the filming. Everyone was surprised by the boy's reaction. I agree. This way I can become a superstar even faster, said Shijun in his mind. But Seo-eun was worried that the boy would be recognized even more. Lee Min calmed her down. He also encouraged her by saying that they were already busy all day with work, and this was their only chance to relax and get away from it. The couple held hands and looked into each other's eyes, their gazes filled with love. Before they knew it, Seo-young, who had escaped from his father's arms, sat on his uncle's lap. Ah Chan said that they were acting like newlyweds. A large office center. In one of the rooms was a young man named Kevin. He was a rapper. He was sitting at his computer and thinking, "I'm excited! All the people are going crazy and buying all the mix from the stores. There must be something in this commercial that I don't understand." Next to this guy was Park Seo-chin, who is the lead singer of their band, who said that the shooting starts in 3 days. And if Kevin has time to distract himself, then let him read this book, and gave him a book called 3 Minutes a Day. It was a book with fairy tales for children. But Kevin said that when he read this book, he was drawn to sleep because it was full of pictures. But Puck asked him to reread it, and then he could retell what he had read. Choi was standing next to them. He was the main dancer. And he asked what he should do. Park instructed him to go buy toys for the baby. And he emphasized that the boy was only 8 months old. But Choi asked him how much he could spend on toys, and Park told him that he could spend as much as he wanted. Choi started to get ready to leave the room, but Park told him that if the boy didn't like the toys, Choi would be banned from using the electronics. Choi was shocked to hear this, and asked how long the ban would be. But Park did not give a clear answer. And in his mind, he said to himself that the future of the whole group depended on it. The day of the TV show came. Seo-jun's uncle came back to their apartment in the morning and set up cameras all over the apartment, in the living room, bedroom, and even the kitchen. He called his crew and asked them if they were ready to shoot. The group was in the underground parking garage and was just on their way up to the apartment. Chan told them that the cameras were already turned on and that as soon as they entered the apartment, the filming would begin. The guys entered the apartment and said, "Congratulations! We're brown black," and bowed their heads to Shijun's parents. "Brown black?" Lee Ming asked the boys in surprise. But June said they could just call them Bubble or just BB. Lee Ming understood and said he was pleased to meet them and introduced himself as well. "This is my sister," Seo-eun-chan added. The group members looked at each other, recalling the screams coming from the phone during the conversation. They did not expect the fears which they had heard to be a beauty. The boys began to introduce themselves one by one and thought that their principal, Chan, was nothing like her. Seo-eun was excited and introduced herself to the boys as well. Now everyone was together. But then the sister of the person who was in charge of PR for their company showed up. She introduced herself as a pediatrician named Kim Wor-young. Seo-yeon wondered why pediatricians were on the set. Jang told her that their son would be filmed for the next 48 hours and that a doctor would be on hand so that no one would be worried. Seo-yeon was surprised that her brother had thought of everything so well. But Chan replied that it was Seo-chin who suggested it. Chapter 9. The shooting lasted a long time. And at one point Lee Min suggested that Seo-chin hold Shijun in his arms. So-chin took him in his arms. But he was very shocked because he had never held a child before. But Shijun liked it very much because it was someone new holding him, but he was not very comfortable. Li Ming saw that Chin was not holding him comfortably and decided to correct the boy. He told Chin to hold the boy close to him because it would be more comfortable. Shijun was very happy and grumbling. He was in a very good mood. But the boys in the group, especially Chin, were surprised by the boy's joy. They were frightened. They asked Lee Min why the boy was doing this, and they also asked the pediatrician the same thing. Seo-yeon saw this and laughed at the boys because her little son just started to enjoy what was happening. Chan was glad that the boys' reaction was like that because the cameras were on and everything was being recorded. The pediatrician was also filming at that moment. Chan liked the fact that the pediatrician was also taking pictures. He said that it would be good additional footage and asked her to give him the camera to see what she had filmed. She agreed and gave him the camera. He took a look and was surprised. The pediatrician was scared and thought something was wrong. But Chan said that everything was fine, but he was embarrassed. The pediatrician apologized and Chan said he would look at the pictures she had taken later. The group that was still filming was scared because the boy kept laughing. Kevin started to say something in English, but no one understood him and asked him to speak in Korean. One of the group members offered to play with the boys' toys. They took the toys but didn't know how to play with them. And someone in the room said that the boy was laughing because they were very funny. Shi-jun sat there and thought how funny it was. He had never seen such funny people before. He liked it all very much. Suddenly, a tear ran down his cheek. The boys were even more frightened, but Si-jun kept laughing out loud. After handing Shi-jun over to his father, Brown Black plopped down on the floor looking exhausted. They had never experienced anything so exhausting before. Chan asked the group if they were tired after the 10-minute shoot. They were amazed that only 10 minutes had passed. They felt like a long time had passed. Shi-jun's parents were sitting on the floor and said that the Aries had prepared something interesting for the group. Chan was surprised and asked what it was. They replied that they had prepared complete information about their son. It was Shi-jun's diary. This diary had a full schedule of the boy's day, what games he liked to play, and many other things. At one point, she remembered that there were a lot of toys in the back seat of their car, but they were all very scary, and she told Chan that they didn't have a lot of toys. And she thought that it was better not to show them those toys and that their son should wait 2 days until the shooting was over. But one of the guys in the group said that they had brought toys for Shi-jun and that his mother didn't have to worry about it. Shi-jun was sitting in his father's arms, holding a teddy bear, and was eager to play with his own toys, not the ones the boys had bought. Lee Min joined the conversation and added that Shi-jun was eating at the same time and they needed to hurry up so that the boy wouldn't start crying because he was hungry. Seo-eun was happy that her husband remembered that her son needed to eat. She asked the boys which one of them wanted to try to feed Si-jun. At this point, 2 of the boys agreed to help and feed Shi-jun. They started preparing the formula and Lee Ming brought in his happy son. Kevin sat down on the floor and said that he would be a high chair for Shi-jun. And everyone started laughing at him, joking that this was the best position for him. Seo-yeon's alarm clock rang and said it was time to feed the boy. She picked him up and asked which of the boys would try to feed him. Kevin took Si-jun and started feeding him. Everyone was surprised that he could do it so easily. At this time, Si-jun was sitting on Kevin's lap and happily eating his formula. The boys were surprised and asked Seo-eun what they should do after the boy ate. But when they looked around, they saw that the boy's parents were gone. They had disappeared somewhere. Chan laughed at them and said that now the 48 hours of group with Shi-jun would begin. The boys were stunned by what they heard. Yesterday morning, the parents were sitting and thinking about how simple their little Shi-jun's life is. At that moment, they were writing a diary, or more precisely, a little Shi-jun's schedule. Seo-eun smiled and looked at her son. Seo-jun was playing with a new 2-headed ogre doll. Seo-yeon began to complain to her husband that it was so hard for her to come up with new games and that for some reason, the boy didn't like playing with her lately. Shi-jun was listening and thought that his mother had revealed his secret. But Lee Min reassured her and told her not to worry, because tomorrow there would be many people here, namely idols who could sing. Seoyeon shook her head and added that they could probably not only sing, but also dance well. But they lack something. Maybe that will change after their debut. As Shijun sat there listening, he thought that his uncle would need help. He went back to his life library and started looking. He searched for a long time and found it. Among all the books, he found one that had a skill that would help with music. This skill was called Orchestra Conductor's Communication. Chapter 10. The filming continued and the guys started introducing themselves one by one. Hwang Ae-jun was the first to start. He is the host of the events they hold. Shijun was listening to him and was amazed that this young guy was already hosting different events. And at that moment he started laughing. The guys paid attention to him and realized that the boy liked it. Hwang realized that they needed to introduce the main guest of their program, namely a little 8-month-old boy named Si-jun. Hwang started reading the diary left by the boy's parents. Everything was described in detail, including the fact that he was born on March 10th and is now 8 months old, and that he has 2 bottom teeth and loves to play. Hwang was surprised that at 8 months old, the boy already knew a lot of things. So he decided to introduce his band to little Si-jun. So he passed the microphone to Park. Park introduced himself and said that he was the main vocalist and leader of the band. But when he was saying this, a thought flashed through his mind, and he wondered if Si-jun understood him, because he was still very young. But Si-jun understood everything, and he thought that the main singer is the one who sings the best. And he had a little bit of a misunderstanding, because Park turned out to be both the leader of the group and the main singer. The guys started laughing at Park and said that Si-jun didn't understand him anyway and asked him to speak in simple words. South Park introduced himself in a different way, saying that he was the second singer in their band. Kevin was the next to introduce himself, and he was from Los Angeles. And the next one to introduce himself was Choi Si-young. He is the best dancer and offered to show the boy his amazing dancing. But Chan asked him not to do that and let him dance some other time. Shijun was very happy and he really wanted the boys to dance together. But Chan was worried that the boys would not damage the apartment while dancing. It was already 4 o'clock and the alarm clock rang, which meant it was time for Shijun to go to bed. One of the boys went to get a blanket, and Kevin held Si-jun in his arms and began to ask the boy to sleep a little. And at that moment, the boy touched Kevin's cheeks and used the orchestra conductor's connection skill. And it worked. Si-jun mentally apologized to the boy because he just wanted to touch his face and accidentally hit him. Kevin was happy because he thought the boy liked him. But suddenly, one of the boys ran up to them and really wanted Si-jun to hit him too. Si-jun touched his face and used the skill again. And it happened again. The other boys also wanted him to touch them. Si-jun did so and passed on to the boys this precious skill that the boys did not even realize they had. The boys decided to determine who Si-jun loved the most and started a quarrel. Park said that he was the boy who loved him the most because he made the biggest mark on his cheek. But the boys continued to argue and decide who was in which place in terms of Si-jun's love for them. Park added that it didn't matter, and they would determine the ranking at the end of the day and said that he would definitely be the best. But the boys didn't like that and started arguing for the championship. While the boys were arguing, little Si-jun fell asleep. He slept very sweetly, and the boys looked at him with open mouths because they were surprised. The boy was sleeping and smiling, and the boys realized that Si-jun had really enjoyed the time he was spending with the boys. The conductor's connection showed Si-jun the level of connection with those on whom the skill was used. And at that moment, a rating appeared above the boys in Si-jun's eyes, showing numbers and the level of connection between them. The level was very high and their musical talent was growing very fast, the boy thought, so everything would be fine. Si-jun slept and imagined that music was the center of everything. It is a place where beautiful music never ends. A spirit world of music that was born from the spirit tree and among many other instruments. At that moment, an orchestral baton appeared. Behind it appeared a woman who was beautifully dressed, and she greeted the spirit of the baton and heard in response, "Good morning." She was the spirit of a clarinet, and asked him what he was doing here in the morning, probably practicing, and he replied that there would be a music competition in a few days. She was happy to hear this because she was eager to see his skill. All musical spirits receive one or two skills, but he had never revealed what abilities he had. The orchestra conductor's connection is the highest level. It connects the user and improves musical skills tenfold, but it all depends on the strength of the connection, and it is expressed in numbers. Therefore, the maximum number of connections is only 30. The requirement for use was that you had to touch the person you wanted to use the skill on with your hand. But he could have had the fate of a conductor, which he received after birth and began to build a connection with other instruments, and become the best orchestra in history. But he was a demon king in his past life. Chapter 11. The spirits played instruments. They had a lot of fun and liked what they were playing. The newly born spirit could not have any memories of the life of the demon king, but the world begins and ends with music. These were the thoughts in his head. It was beautiful, but very boring for him. He could no longer stand it. The violence and heartlessness of his past life was still affecting his present. The day of the music competition came. He greeted and introduced himself as the spirit of a stick conductor and used his skill. He said hello to the spirit of the drums, and next to him was a cute girl who was the spirit of the piano. They were on different teams, but the drum spirit asked them to try their best. The spirit of the conductor laughed and said that he expected a good performance because the music competition was a very important event for the newborn spirits. Music was used as an offering to the spirit tree. Only the best performers were to perform at this event. So the first group began to perform. But he wondered what would happen if, instead of the growth of the connection, it would fall. So he decided to try it. The spirit of the drum began to drop rapidly, and the people listening to it began to discuss that this performance was very terrible. The drumming was very bad, and the jury said that they should reconsider the rules of the competition because it was not good. People really didn't like the first group that opened the competition. The group made a lot of mistakes and nobody liked it. Because many people said that the drum spirit had a very good talent, but something happened to him. Maybe the drum was broken. But the spirit of the drum knew that the whole problem was with the spirit of the baton conductor. He was sitting in the front row and smiling slyly. A strong sense of caring affects the connection to the goals of the skill. Dark intentions that the spirit has not experienced before have a strong impact on the connection. And at that time, all the bands that played on the stage made a lot of mistakes, and no one liked the music. People were shocked because the new generation of spirits was lousy. They had no taste in music. But they all looked up to the last group, and this group was a baton conductor. So they all hoped that they could do it better. They went on stage and the spirit asked for the violins so that they would not lose confidence, and that they would do it better than everyone else. She looked at the maestro with happy eyes and they started playing music. He gave her his hand and used his last stick conductor skill. They started playing their own tune, but their ratings started to fall rapidly. They were shocked as to why this was happening. It was a fiasco. They felt that something was pressing on them and their connection with the goal was falling very rapidly. They couldn't concentrate on their playing and they realized that someone in the audience was controlling this state. They looked at the spirit of the wand conductor and he continued to laugh sarcastically at them. He was the one who had ruined everything. They wanted to stop the performance, but that would have made it even worse, so the Aries continued to play. The wand conductor was delighted with what he had done. He was enjoying it and decided to stop this performance. The spirit tree was dying. Everyone was shocked to see this. They all knew that the wand conductor had done all this and decided to stop him. They all started running to him to stop him, but he was standing there laughing loudly. He stood and shouted loudly that he had been waiting for the world to change for so long. And now it has happened. but all the listeners turned their eyes to the violin. They were amazed because the conductor had stopped playing, but the spirit of the violin was playing so well that the tree began to come to life. The conductor was lying on the ground and did not understand what was happening. And thanks to the spirit of the violin and its beautiful playing, the tree came to life. All the listeners recognized that the conductor was the worst criminal in history. He was the first person to be sentenced to death. It was all a nightmare for Shijun. He didn't understand why he was dreaming about it so often, and he also didn't understand why he had such a terrible past. The boy woke up in his library of life and was very surprised to find the book of communication of an orchestra conductor. He did not know where it came from. It was a power that could destroy the whole world. It had gained a dark attribute and should have disappeared, but it was here. He thought that the spiritual tree had gathered all its strength to protect it, even though its level had fallen to the lowest. The tree almost died because of him and his actions. Shijun was sitting on the floor. He felt very sorry for the tree and did not understand why he had done such a thing in the past, and he started to cry. The boys immediately ran to the boy to see what had happened to him. They wondered why he was crying and thought he must be hungry. But Shijun knew that he was just very sad because of what he had done in his past life. Park Jin took the baby food from the kitchen and began to blow on it furiously to cool it down as quickly as possible. Taking the puree with a spoon, he brought it to Shijun's mouth. But he refused to eat. "I'm not hungry," Siyun said to himself. The more he thought about what had happened, the more guilty he felt. He expressed his dissatisfaction by flailing his legs and kicking the blanket. The reflexes worked instantly, and Shijun started eating baby food. Soon he felt much better. He ate without thinking. "Wow, he's so good at it. He must be really hungry," the boys thought. Shijun sat on Kevin's lap and thought how delicious the food was. He started to laugh and said that he must have had a terrible dream because he was hungry. The boys wondered what it would be like to feed a small child, and each of them wanted to try it. While the teen was arguing, Shijun calmly ate the baby food that was prepared for him. It was getting very late, and the female pediatrician decided to go home, and told the boys that if they needed her help, they could call her anytime. The boys had to put the boy to bed. But Shijun did not want to sleep, because his laughter and pleasant moments did not give him peace. But the boy should have fallen asleep 30 minutes ago. The boys were very worried about this. So they decided to sing him their song. They practiced it for 3 days before this day. Everyone agreed and started singing. And at that moment, the orchestra conductor's communication skill was activated. Chapter 12. The low level of communication of the orchestra conductor was activated. The boys' level began to rise very quickly. The boys sang and were sincerely surprised that their level of singing had increased a lot since the last time. After singing the previous song, they decided to sing another one, but it was a mystery that they had a ballad song in their album, which was very similar to a lullaby. The boy was lying there thinking that he could not activate the skill at will. The connection between them is the foundation for the growth of their singing, so everything in them has to agree. So he was lying there thinking that it would take several months to improve their singing. But the boys were able to fulfill the conditions very quickly on the first try. Meanwhile, Chan was videotaping them and was extremely surprised that the boys were singing so well. He was filming and his hands were shaking. He had heard this song more than 100 times, but this was the first time he heard that it was fun, joyful, and so good. And with the help of this song, you can understand exactly what feelings the guys want to convey to people who will listen to this song. The guys sang very perfectly. They corrected all their mistakes. It was amazing. But Chan was surprised why this happened. After singing the song, the boys were shocked that they were able to sing it perfectly. Without noticing, they sang the whole album to Sijun and the boy fell asleep in no time. They thought that the boy felt their positive energy and fell asleep because of it. and they decided that from that moment on, they would make music that would convey their mood and their thoughts. A neighbor who was sitting in the open window on the floor above for 40 minutes started sneezing because he was cold. The music mesmerized him, and he wondered who these talented artists were. He turned on an app that detects music, but the app found nothing. He was curious to know who these musicians with very beautiful voices and songs were. At that time, Sejun was sitting in the living room with Kim Hwa-yeon and Choi Shur-young, who were playing his construction game. The boy really enjoyed the game and did everything right. Kim was surprised by the boy's skill because Sejun had placed the red square right on top of the construction set as it was supposed to be. They thought that this kid was a genius. But Choi didn't like the way the boy placed the square. He moved it and said that the boy had placed it too crookedly. Kim and Sejun were surprised by Choi's actions. But Sejun didn't like it very much and got angry and started crying. Choi started apologizing to the boy. Kim asked Choi to go to the kitchen and cook because he was causing trouble. The filming continued. Kim invited the audience to watch and emphasized that they were about to start preparing a special meal with Sejun. There were a lot of different ingredients on the table, and they decided to cook a dish with the products that the boy would choose. And she emphasized to the audience that they would be the first to try everything so as not to harm Sejun. Therefore, the boy is completely safe, and they hoped it would be delicious food. They started asking the boy which food was his favorite. Sejun was sitting there thinking, but he pointed to the veal on the plate. The boys were happy that Sejun chose meat as the first food. The next food Sejun chose was the yolk of an egg. The third food he chose was spinach. And finally, he chose shiitake mushrooms. The boy couldn't stop himself and chose one more food, cauliflower. The boys started laughing at Sejun because he had chosen so many foods and started mixing them all. After mixing, they saw that the color of the mixed foods turned black. They put it on the stove and decided to add more salt. But the pediatrician said that salt was not allowed for a small child. The boys started to taste what they had prepared and it was very tasteless. But it was good that Seo-eun had prepared food for the boy in advance, and that food was in the refrigerator. The boys went outside and stood by a wooden gazebo. They took Sejun with them. They wrapped him in clothes so tightly that he couldn't even move, and they put a bunny hat with ears on his head. The boys looked at the boy. He was sitting there so cute, and they called him Rabbit Sejun. They began to tell him that they loved him very much. But the boy was hot and didn't like the hat very much, so he decided to be patient. And now the group decided to have a concert on the street. They started singing and the orchestra conductor's communication skills kicked in. Sejun was amazed that the skill was activated again, because it usually doesn't activate that often, but the guys managed to do it almost without effort. Chan, who was filming the whole thing, was very happy because the boys were singing so well. He knew that his group would become very famous and popular. The guys didn't finish 2 songs from their album because they were exhausted. Sejun helped them with his mana when they sang. But today it was hard for them because they could only rely on their endurance. The boy could not move anymore. Chan looked at the boys. They were all very thin, and he said that he should enroll them in a gym to get them fit and in good shape for the concert. The boys looked at him and wondered what concert Chan was talking about. Chan said that if the Aries continued to sing so well, he would organize a big concert for them, with many people. The boys were very happy when they heard this offer. They were approached by a neighbor who had listened to them sing for the boy last night. Chan thought that he had come to quarrel with them because they were singing very loudly and disturbing other residents. But the man replied that he had not come for that reason. He asked them to tell him the name of the song because he liked it very much. Chapter 13. They were approached by a neighbor who had heard them singing for a boy last night. Chan thought that he had come to quarrel with them because they were singing too loudly and disturbing other residents. But the man replied that he had not come for that reason. He asked them to tell him the name of the song because he liked it very much. Chan was very surprised. The man asked if it was the song they were singing that night. He liked the song very much, but he couldn't find it on the internet. Chan was even more surprised and said that the song the group sang was called Start. Chan also asked the boys to come up to the man and say hello. The boys went over and bowed to him, and their surprise was great. The neighbor was delighted to see these performers. He began to praise them. At that moment, the boys were very shy, because no one had ever complimented them like that before. The man also added that their dancing was also very good, but he was surprised that he could not find such a talented group on the internet. But Chan added that the guys hadn't made their debut yet. The man nodded his head in surprise and said that now he understood. Chan began to tell the man that they were just recording a children's TV show for NeoTube. He said that the man could watch the show later. The man saw that there was a young girl sitting on the bench, and she was a pediatrician, and a little boy, Shijun, was sitting next to her. And at that moment, the man asked if he could get an autograph from the young band. The boys were genuinely shocked that the man asked them to do this. They had never had an autograph from anyone before. The man smiled at them and added that they could do it if they wanted to. And finally, the man said he would be looking forward to their debut. The man turned around and left, but he couldn't leave them without one more compliment, and he said, "Guys, thank you for the autographs. I will definitely buy your album when it comes out." The guys stood there and were very surprised that they were getting an autograph for the first time. At this moment, the orthopedist was sitting on the bench, holding little Shijun in her arms and filming the whole event. And Shijun was sitting there smiling sincerely, but the boys were not smiling at all. They were in a state of shock at what had happened. They went up to Seo Chung and happily told him that they had been praised by the man who came up. They were very happy because they had practiced so much and had a very good result, and now they had to try even harder because people liked their work. But the boy did not understand why they were so sad, and even some of them started to cry. He thought that if everyone was crying, he should probably cry too. The next morning came and the guys were finishing filming. They were putting the Christmas decorations on the tree and had to say goodbye to Shijun. They were surprised that 48 hours had passed so quickly. They enjoyed it, even though it was very hard at first. And they were a little sad that the little boy would not be around anymore, and they were very used to him. And they decided to end this event on a beautiful note. They turned off the light in the room, and this made Shijun a little scared, because the room became too dark. He started screaming in fright. But Kim walked over to the boy, bent down, showed him the light switch, and asked Sejun to turn it on together. They started counting from 1 to 3, while Chan filmed the whole process. When they finished counting, they pressed the switch, and at that moment the little boy was very surprised because the Christmas tree was lit up. They wished the little boy a happy new year and gave him many gifts. And they said goodbye on this happy note. At that moment, the little boy's parents came home. They took him in their arms and began to hug him tightly because they missed him so much. Song asked the boy if he had been good, and the boy was extremely happy that his parents had finally returned home. Li Ming noticed that there was a Christmas tree in the corner of the room. His wife was surprised that her brother could afford to buy such expensive things. And on one of the branches was a ball with a note inside. The parents thought that the boys had left this note for little Sejun. They took the ball from the tree and offered it to the little boy so that he and his father could read what it said. This letter said that the boys who had been with him for 48 hours had left this letter. They also wrote that they thought that the show they were filming would just give them popularity. But now they felt that they had become a family and did not want to leave. The letter also said that they thanked the boy for his sincere smile. At that moment, the boy remembered how the boys fed him, took care of him, and he heard the last phrase that was written in the letter. It said, "We wish you happiness, and we will see you soon and have fun. Grow up big and be strong and look forward to your birthday present. We hope that these few days have been very interesting for you and that you will never forget them." Seo-en knew that the boys had written this letter from the bottom of their hearts, and was extremely happy because her son was the best. Li Min took him in his arms and asked him in surprise what the boy was doing when his parents were away. The boy looked at his father, and the thought flashed through his mind that he loved his father more and more. And at that moment, something extraordinary happened. The boy shouted out his first word, and that word was Dad. The parents looked at him and were surprised once again because the boy had said his first word. His mother took him in her arms and asked him to try to say the word Mom. The boy looked at her and said this amazing second word, Mom. Shijun, who was only 8 months old, had already spoken his first extraordinary words that his parents had been waiting for, and those words were, Mommy and Daddy. Chapter 14. The boy began to have new memories, and he remembered that before the opening of the Library of Life, he remembered all his previous incarnations. Therefore, many people considered him a very big monster, because he used to be a stone giant, but with a kind soul. And in some circles he was called a heretic because he had mixed dark and light energy. He was exhausted because he could not live any of his lives normally, when he stopped understanding who he really was. With the help of all his strength, the Library of Life was created, which contained a lot of his memories from his past life, and all these memories were in books. And now all these books feel like stories that he has ever read, but unfortunately they cannot influence his next life in any way, but they can influence his personality. The boy remembered how he was holding a dragon toy by the throat, and he also remembered how during the filming of the TV show the guys took away all his monster toys. But his childish instinct took over and he forgot about his scary toys. Now it was clear to him that they had influenced him very much. He was holding the dragon toy at that moment, but he was worried about something else. He was worried that he had 2 personalities, namely, he who remembered his previous lives, and he was a carefree child who was cheerful and happy. Therefore, he wondered which of them was his main personality. Just 1 month after the filming of the TV show, Chan sat in a small room with his group and asked them to gather. The group had a serious problem. They had lost their confidence because they had made so many mistakes during rehearsals. And at that moment, Chan's phone rang and it was his sister. Chan called everyone to sit closer to him and told them that their savior was calling, and it was a little boy named Shijun. He called them by video. When the boys saw that a little boy was calling them, they were surprised once again. On the other side of the phone, their parents were sitting and smiling. The boys were very happy and wanted to get closer to the phone. But the boy was surprised to see that their connection had dropped dramatically. He thought that it had taken a long time. The boys started complaining to Shijun because their confidence had fallen. But Shijun started to support them and said that everything would be fine. At that moment, the boy raised his little hands to the mountain and shone. The parents and the boys who were looking at the boy were very much surprised because the boy's reaction was very strange. But the parents picked up on it and started supporting the boys as well. They said that Shijun was doing this because she wanted to tell them to try harder and train. Chan also supported the boys and told them not to doubt themselves, because even a little boy believes in their strength. The boys started to think about it, and their spirits rose rapidly. They realized that they had no time to relax, and at that moment their level of connection began to grow rapidly. The boys thanked Sejun because they felt much better. A guy came into their room and told them that they would be going on stage soon. The boys started to get very nervous because it was their first performance on stage. The host began to introduce them and emphasized that today a young talented band would make their debut. Their most popular song is called Start. The guys came on stage with a sincere smile and saw that a lot of people were waiting for their performance. At that moment, Shijun's family was watching their performance on TV. They were amazed because the boys were singing so well. The boy sat on his father's lap and thought that they looked like his old self. So he didn't want them to stumble into trouble. When he sees these happy faces, the old him wants to become a superstar more and more. A month ago, a neighbor from upstairs who liked the band's music was chatting and wondering what kind of band they were, what kind of popular track they had. He asked his friends in the chat room, but no one could give him an answer. Everyone laughed at him because this song was incomprehensible to them. But 1 month passed and everyone saw that this band had become very popular, thanks to this TV show and this little boy. There were a lot of different articles in the chat room, namely discussions about other people wanting to become their fans. The neighbor was watching all this and was surprised once again. He went out on his balcony and shouted, "I told you it wasn't advertising." In the apartment where the little boy lived, at that moment his father was walking around the house doing his chores. But at some point, he saw that his wife had returned home with the little boy, but they were supposed to go for a walk. The man asked his wife what had happened. The woman replied that she had gone for a walk near the house and on the street they saw 2 young boys standing next to them and discussing that this was really a boy who was starring in a TV series and had his own popular channel. The woman was not afraid and returned home immediately. The little boy sat on his mother's lap and thought, "Popularity is very cool." After the end of the popular TV show starring Seju and the band Daytime Moron, they hit the 6th place in the ranking. The boy's mother was very worried when she watched this video. And she was also worried about the toys that the boy liked to play with. But at that moment during the filming she took those toys to the car. And he didn't play with them for 2 days. She also thought that they didn't care about their son's unique taste in toys and wanted to fit him to other people's standards. And she didn't want to be caught up in other people's opinions. Shijun sat on the floor, held his toy in his hands and said a magic word that made his mom very happy. That word was mom. Seoyeon took him in her arms, comforted him, and told him that she was taking care of his toys and he didn't have to worry about them. Lee Min was already standing next to her, and she added that it was good that they had already sorted it out before they became too popular, but they also thought that few people would be surprised that their son loved extraordinary toys. The husband took his wife by the hand and told her to grow up and fight because they were leaving anyway. At that moment, a party was taking place in honor of the band's debut. When the group heard that the family was going to leave for America, they were very surprised. They asked why the family was leaving. And the father of the little boy answered that he was being transferred to another department. They also added that they would be there for a few years and then return. The boys felt very sad because they would not see the boy for so long. But one of the group members asked what city they were going to. Lee Min answered that Los Angeles was waiting for them. Kevin, who also used to live in Los Angeles, was surprised and said that his sister lived there. If they needed anything, to call her and she would help them. Seoeun thanked the guy. Kevin added that his sister is very popular and likes to meet new people, and he will warn her that the boy's family may contact her. Seoeun said that she was worried about their move because it was something new for her, and she didn't know anyone there and was comforted that Kevin gave her his sister's phone number. The boys wished them a safe journey.